The Lily plushie and digital artist pin set are only available for one more week, so if you would like to get them before they're gone, check out the link in my description. Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne, and I want you to guess how long this actually took me. Just a VTuber rig, right? I've already done this before. How long could it possibly take? So to start, I needed to fix a couple things that I knew would become a problem as I began rigging. The first was that the face was not totally symmetrical. Her chin was a little off the main line, as well as her nose, and I just knew that those sharp teeth were also going to have issues like poking out when the mouth moved around them. I also changed up her normal teeth and made sure that the gap was right along the middle line as well. Symmetry is more important than I ever realized in rigging, so I decided to just fix that up before I even pulled her into Live 2D, which we will be using for the rigging. Once I got her chin right in line and her face mostly symmetrical, it was time to bring her in. Now this is always the scariest part. When you first open up Live 2D, I think it's very overwhelming, and I heavily utilize tutorials from both Hiro Mori as well as Chupuko, who basically, if I did anything right in these tutorials, it's because of those two, and everything I did wrong is probably just because of me and my incompetence. But I just wanted to shout them out because it was really helpful, especially in these early stages where you're trying to like organize everything. It just feels so overwhelming. The first time I rigged Lilybell, as many of you more experienced riggers noticed, I didn't use any of my own meshes. This was such a game changer, and right away I realized I made another mistake. Her little spiky part at the edge of her eyeball is in the same piece as her little eyelid, and that's an issue because it makes her eye way harder to open and close, and there's really no need for that. So I had to go out and basically chop that right off and make them separate parts, and that completely helped avoid the problem. So by default, a lot of your little pieces of your VTuber just have like a square mesh around them. You can auto mesh them, but they're usually like too detailed and they might not be exactly like the way that you want them. So I did find that just making these little meshes was super helpful, and I learned a lot about how you should actually split them up. There should be some kind of line in the middle. That helps a lot, especially with the big cartoony eyes that I'm using. Finding the right way to actually like break them down was really important, especially for stuff like the spikies inside the whites of her eyes. Those were so difficult on the original rig, and not nearly as bad because I had these little like vertex points like right at the point of each spike, which allowed me to just like shift them over, and just made it a lot easier. I really wanted to use glue. I know that you can glue the vertices together between like the lower lid and the whites of the eye, and that would have been really great, but I ended up finding it a bit too confusing, so I just did it manually. That happened a couple of times. This time I knew about the smile eye and how important that was, so I made sure to do that right when I was rigging the eye instead of waiting until later like I did the first time I rigged her. Now I will say I had a frustration with the right eye that was really annoying. So basically I had accidentally put part of the right eye in a folder with the closed eye, which I didn't end up using and was turned off. Because of that, for the longest time I couldn't figure out why I couldn't like do anything with the right eye. I also got my rights and lefts mixed up constantly. And you can see here I'm getting really frustrated because for some reason the mesh on one of the eyes has been duplicated very far off the side of the canvas, and it was just causing me all kinds of issues. I think I know what happened there now, but yeah, I was literally just like furiously trying to figure out what had gone wrong, and yeah, it took a long time, a lot of adjusting, trying to figure out exactly what I had done and why that eyeball was way over there. A lot of the time-saving tricks, like the flipping over of meshes and that kind of thing, I ended up just giving up on completely and having to do everything by hand. I know that's not the smartest thing. I should have just figured it out, but at a certain point it is actually faster just to do it the way that you already know how. So yeah, if you guys know exactly what happened and why I had like an eyeball flung off on the side that I couldn't move or adjust in any way, please let me know. But yeah, I could already tell that the eyes were looking a lot better. And one of the big tips that Chupaco said in one of their videos was that you want to make like an extra wide eye and make sure that the default open eye is not like the farthest maximum. I think that was part of the reason why Lilybell famously had quite a lazy eye and why it was very easy for her eyes to close. That was a big issue for me, and I feel like now, even with relatively low or poor lighting, I still am not having too much of that lazy eye effect, which I was really worried about because I thought maybe it was just like the way that my phone was, you know, looking at my face and the angles that everything was at, but I do actually think that was partially a rigging problem, so I'm very excited that that has improved. When I'm opening her eye a little bit extra, I'm also shrinking her iris down a little, which at first I wasn't sure about, but now I really like. I made sure that all my edits on the way that her irises are looking around is on the L Eyeball XY Warp Deformer, and that has all the irises in it, so I should be able to switch between her heart iris and evil iris easily in the future. I was pretty afraid of this part of the rigging process because when I did this the first time, the mouth was just like one JPEG where the teeth, tongue, the inside of the mouth, and both lips were all one single simple piece. It just opened and closed. And now that I've actually done the mouth rigging, I realize I should have been even more afraid than I already was. It is very tricky. Now, the thing that helped me the most was certainly following along tutorials, but also making sure that all my meshes were really like cleverly built and really detailed. I am going to have to redo parts of this, spoiler alert, not because I really messed it up, but really mostly just because I want to stylize it a little differently. Like, it's always hard to tell exactly how it's gonna look when you're actually like moving it with your face versus like swinging around the ranges, you know, wildly inside of this program. But basically the way I tackled it was I turned off the inside of the mouth, the teeth, the tongue, all of that stuff, and basically was just morphing the top and bottom lip line into different shapes that I thought would be good talking mouth shapes. Every video I saw about this said to use these different kind of like example charts, and you end up making a bunch of different like keyframes at different points, and then you connect them together so they form this kind of like rectangular grid kind of thing. I think part of my problem was I didn't really understand what I was doing. Like, I was trying to copy these charts, but I don't know how to like actually get it to follow like my vowel sounds. Like if I go like E, you know, I want her mouth to like stretch out into that shape, and I don't know how to like fit that in, because right now all I have is mouth open or close and the mouth form, which is like smiling or frowning. I need something that's like a little more detailed, and I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I just didn't figure it out at this point, so I'm going to have to make some edits there if I want her to have like a really realistic kind of like way that her mouth is moving. I don't even know if this is something you can do in VTube Studio, but it probably is, and I just don't know what I'm doing. But already this was looking way more realistic and better and more detailed just because it's popping open, you know, into like a three-dimensional space where her teeth and her tongue are all different and her mouth is just, her lips are moving around her mouth. It was really tricky, like making sure that we were never seeing the inside of her mouth like outside of her lip area. This is another place where I probably should have just learned how to use glue, because you really want the top and bottom lip skin to be super accurate onto the line of the lips, otherwise it gets really spooky and freaky looking. Sometimes it's just the tiniest little bit of the inside of the mouth poking out and it totally changes the look of the shape of the mouth. So I really had to get in there and zoom way in to make sure that I was completely covering everything, and also not having it like conflict with her little eye patch stain thing, because it had to be actually above that, and so I really had to make sure I was not causing any conflict there, or else there'd be random like skin color patches teleporting in front of her little eye patch. So Yeah, it was tricky, I'm not gonna lie. It is really fun to mess around with this. Like, you can really make her quite expressive, and I didn't do this at this point yet because I hadn't done the head angles yet, but the really cool thing about having your tongue, the inside of the mouth, and the teeth separate is that when your character turns their head, you can actually like rotate the tongue and the teeth, and you do this sort of parallaxing movement where their mouth really does look 3D, whereas that would be completely impossible the way I did this the first time. It is kind of funny that I kind of made the exact same mistake I did the first time, where I really wanted her to have like a very slight smile as a default, but I'm gonna have to undo that again just because, like I said before, it just takes some of her expressiveness away, and it takes the impact of the actual smile away as well. But yeah, it's a little tricky. I definitely noticed that as I linked the mouth form and mouth open together, we were getting all kinds of interesting shapes in the mouth, and that little tongue peeking out really does look more striking, I think. And also her teeth are not shrinking. That was something that really bugged me with the way that the original model was rigged, because technically like her actual size of her teeth shrunk down with her mouth, which is weird looking, like it just is. Whereas now, like when she has her mouth very slightly open, her teeth still look like they're in the correct scale to the rest of her mouth, so kind of important. I'm definitely always going to rig my mouth this way forever now. So before I got started on the head angles, which I remembered being the most intimidating part of my last rig, I decided to do the right thing and actually track down that weird eye that was floating off the canvas and deleting it. It did cause this 3 art mesh masks, including art mesh 60 have been deleted error message to be stuck to the bottom of my screen for a while, but eventually I was able to make it go away. And then it was just time to get into the tilting of the head side to side, up and down, and on angle Z, which is like the direct tilt on the it's hard to explain. So angle X is basically shaking the head back, right, and left. Angle Y is like nodding your head, and angle Z is tilting your head like shoulder to shoulder. I think that's the clearest way to say it. And you kind of have to do this like a sculptor. You have to like warp it. And so the trick is you want to take everything off of the head. You can see how horrifying Lily's bald head looks. I never really intended for you guys to see all that up there. So yeah, she does look a little turnipy. I usually, when I'm actually drawing, I'll make the skull part bigger than it is here, but I wanted it to kind of be easy to tuck away, so that's why she's got this very strange shape to her head. This is the first time I successfully actually like reflected the sculpting that I did on the other side, which thank goodness for that, because having to resculpt her head left and right would have been time consuming and probably not looked as good. Now it gets really funky when you connect the angle X and angle Y at first. Her head was just kind of, I mean, she looked like, I don't even know what she looked like. She looked really fungal. She looked like a weird mushroom or something. Just lots of stuff like bulging out everywhere, and the line art up at the top of the head was looking totally whack, but that's okay because it's going to be totally covered by her bangs. I also really struggled to get her eyeballs moving the way they're supposed to, because even though I deleted that weird eye that was off the canvas, my mesh was still like, the bounding box was still kind of selecting over there. I messed with it a lot and finally fixed it. I don't even remember how I fixed it, but it was a freaking procedure. This is when things were getting really dark. I was getting quite frustrated. I had been working for many hours with no break, and I think you just start to lose your mind at a certain point. So there's really 2 things I'm trying to focus on as I'm mapping the facial features and other pieces of the head to this warped, turned face. The first thing obviously is just movement, like moving the mouth over by the nose where it belongs, and then it's actually warping to give that more 3D effect. This is tricky, especially with the mouth, because as you guys know, it's going to open, and as you can see, there were all kinds of strange things happening as I was warping it down the chin. We ran into that problem where the top lip skin was getting in the way of her little like facial markings, and overall I just wish that I had clipped the inside of the mouth to the head so it would stop poking out in weird ways, but we got it figured out more or less. We're gonna have to tackle that again as I mess with the mouth forms even more. One of the tricky parts about my style, and this particular style I'm using with Lilybell, is that the space between her nose and her chin is small, so I want to do these big, really exaggerated mouths, but there's not that much space to do it in, so it's something to keep in mind. I also preemptively, even though I knew I wasn't going to do like the angry shadow face, I wanted to make sure that it was angled properly, just since I was working on angles now and I didn't want to have to like remember what I was doing before. This time I also wanted to make sure that her ears gave more of a 3D effect, because last time I believe I just kind of mostly used them to make her head look like it was looking up and down, and I didn't really have like the edges of her ears look like they were coming out towards the screen. I thought that maybe warping it like that would make it look a lot more three-dimensional. I don't know if I totally sold the illusion, but I definitely think it looks better. I was most excited to do the back of the head, the braid, and the horn, because I know that if I do those properly, I can really make it look like her head is like a ball rather than, you know, flat. Mostly by just using movement and parallaxing, so when her face turns up, these back parts of her head go down, and that really gives it that three-dimensional look without having to mess with warps too much. I will just say this right now, I think I used too much warping and not enough just movement, just in particular for my art style. I feel like some of the warping is a little too aggressive. So I kept messing with the head angles at many different points just because they change so much, and I also wanted to make sure that the tilts worked okay. When she tilted her head, some of those pieces of her head were not looking right, so you can just go in and manually adjust all the keyforms and make them look a little more handsome in the corners. The corners are usually where you're going to run into trouble because it's having to do a lot of the tweening in the computer, and you just want to make sure that it's looking actually good. This is when I adjusted the tongue and the teeth to make the inside of her mouth look three-dimensional, and honestly, this was one of the easiest and most effective things that I did the whole time. I was giggling and clapping my hands. I was having an awesome time just making the mouth look really open and really three-dimensional. And thank goodness for that, because I was also having to battle my mistakes with the warp that I did on the front pieces of her hair. It made the tendrils behave very strangely once I added the rotations to them. Like, you can see one of her tendrils just starts like weirdly stretching to the side, and that was super frustrating because that was something that was so easy to do with a rotation in the first rig, and I just didn't anticipate that being an issue. You can actually see that I'm gonna have to adjust the neck here. This was a slight warping that I did just to make sure her neck is following kind of like the center of her head, and that was also pretty easy, but you can see there's a little like line of shading that I somehow messed up and didn't carry up all the way to the top of that little like neck bulb. And yeah, battling the tendrils again. I don't know why they gave me so much trouble. I really do think it's because I was warping the bangs and the tendrils together, and then I was trying to add like rotation to them later, so I had to go back and like redo a bunch of stuff. They look pretty good now, but I definitely thought that they were permanently ruined as I was working on it. I also started thinking about stuff like physics. So in the VTuber movement, physics can make the hair and like things like her sleeves look really like whooshy and awesome. So I started thinking about adding different rotations on things like her ears, her ear tag, and her sleeves so that we would be able to use the physics engine to make that look really nice. I also put in that smile. I hadn't had her ears perk up with the smile, and that would just be a huge downgrade, so I had to put that back in. Then I meshed her chest area so that I could actually turn her body. I didn't do any like body turning or anything like that in the original rig, So I definitely wanted to challenge myself, and I felt like I'd be able to do it now that I was doing the meshing myself. It was a lot easier just to think about it in 3 dimensions and put the points where they really needed to go. And then I used the brush tool actually to like shift her torso over. It looks really strange when the collar is not moving as well, and I had to fiddle with the collar quite a bit because it was doing odd things, but I feel like I eventually got it. One of the trickiest parts was actually getting these ties on the front to look correct, like they weren't like growing longer or shorter as she turned and were giving like a dimensional effect while not being like distractingly weird. So I ended up shifting it back and forward and doing all kinds of strange things. Next is the actual physics menu. This is the first time I'd opened it since the rigging the first time, and immediately I was like, what on earth? I could swear I've never seen any of this before. It suddenly looked very alien, and I was very afraid. But again, Chupoko to the rescue. I just looked up tutorials, and it helped out a lot. You have to add in 3 things, basically, when you're trying to do physics, if I understand correctly. So you add in your input settings, your output, and then you have to add like a pendulum to kind of control the way that the thing is moving. There's all these presets now. I feel like those weren't here before, but maybe I'm wrong. And you have to make sure you're picking like angle or position, because that makes a huge difference. And then you also have to make sure that in the preview you have like the previewed part set to something that your mouse is doing, because obviously it's not actually matching to your body or face movements yet. So that was the first time I was kind of practicing and making sure things were looking okay. And honestly, like her face looked so weird and messed up when I was doing the extreme angles, but when I was moving the mouse around her head, she actually looked pretty good, so I was encouraged by that. Newly emboldened, I started trying to fix the tendrils so that they could actually move with physics, because that's like a huge part of what makes her look dynamic, especially like just with her character design. Like she has short hair that's, well, it's actually long, but it's braided up around the back of her head, so most of the hair movement is just those tendrils. I needed them to work, and I needed to figure out why they were getting all malformed and misshapen. I do think I managed to fix most of it. I had a couple bald spot scares where I would shift her, the warp of her front hair, and all of a sudden you could see her scalp. Not a desirable outcome. But yeah, eventually I got it to a point where it was looking pretty good. I think I want to make it a little swishier, but we will see as we continue working on her. This is pretty good for now. I also tagged that in. I tagged the tag in alongside the tendrils, and they're working off the same physics, which I think is totally fine. I think that they should probably move together because it just makes sense. I put the sleeves on a different physics just because I felt like they're a little bit heavier duty, and I wanted the option to like make them a little bit like thicker in the way they moved. It's hard to explain, but I think they look okay. They're not moving as much as I would like them to, especially considering that she's moving her body a lot more. We'll keep playing with the physics as we move along. I honestly almost forgot about her brows. I took them off when I was sculpting her head for the initial angles, and honestly I think it would have been easy for me to finish this video without ever remembering that she has eyebrows, but luckily I did remember because it's actually a big part of making her look expressive, of course. And this time I actually remembered on my previous rig that I had moved the brows too subtly in my first rig, so now they're going way up high and way down low, and I'm also changing their form. I definitely only like raised and lowered them in the original rig. Now I'm actually using my meshes to make them look concerned or angry, and that should allow her to have more unique facial expressions, and they'll be much more dramatic just because the ranges are much larger. That's the one thing, like if I'm to give any advice, which maybe I shan't, but if I'm to give any advice, it's that you, especially with a cartoony style VTuber, you want to make everything a lot more dramatic than you think you'll need to, because it will make your VTuber look better when you're doing those more minor expressions. Alright, this is the moment of truth, the first time trying to export it. So this is the atlas where all the pieces are, and then basically you just import that into VTube Studio, which is what I use. I put it in wrong initially, so here's me doing it again. And then eventually I was able to actually pull her in. I allowed it to do the auto setup. I don't know if I had a setup that was decent from the other rig, so I thought I might as well just start with this. And that added 20 new parameters. And then I used my phone as my facial mocap. I find that that's the best way to do it for me anyway, with my low light in my room. I was very, very excited to see her actually working, but you may notice there's a small problem in one of her eyeballs, and I did not know at first what this was. So do you see that weird little triangle over the shine of her orange iris? There's like a little black triangle. It becomes a lot more easy to see once I actually get the face moving. And I had no idea what that was because that definitely wasn't there when I first exported her. And then I look back at the texture atlas and you can see that this little part, the sharp part of the tendril, which I had trimmed off in the mesh because it was getting in the way, is part of the bangs, so I just scooched it down. But you may notice I missed another problem with the other tendril, which you can now see at the edge of her sleeve. So I'm gonna have to fix that as well. You can just see it right down here. I didn't notice it at first, but that's very annoying. One thing to keep in mind, definitely, if you are using the meshes to trim pieces of your rig away. Alright guys, this is where she's at the end of this video. So as you can see, the iris change effect is not quite working exactly the way that I want it to yet. However, I do think that she's looking way more 3D and cuter. Her head definitely moves more. Please ignore my flashing irises. And I think the mouth is interesting. It's looking better than it was. I can show you guys a direct comparison. Okay, so here is the original Lilybell rig. You can see that she can kind of move around a little bit side to side. Her head does not rotate much, and this is the enhanced version. This is the version where she can smile and her mouth form changes a little bit. So this was the final version of Lilybell before I lost her. You can see her little lazy eye going. And then this is our new one where she's at right now. You can see she's very much more dynamic. I forgot to record the part where I started playing with changing her iris shape when she smiles, but most of that will be for the next video anyway. But yeah, the iris change, I have it sort of pinned to my smile, and I think I'm just smiling too much. And it's kind of like freaky watching it change constantly. So basically I need to make sure that the hearts don't show up unless I'm really smiling like super hard. Otherwise, every time I talk, I'm going to be flashing my irises different shapes all the time. And I do think it's cool, but yeah, I don't want it to be too distracting. I want it to be more of something that I can do intentionally, but hopefully without having to actually have like a specific toggle just for that. I am really happy with the 3D effect though. Like, she can lean forward and back, and I tied it in with her sleeves so she kind of moves more, and her body can rotate and her head can move around. I thought this was gonna look so botched at first, but it doesn't look so bad. But yeah, the lip sync's not perfect yet, so that's what we're going to be focusing on in the next video, as well as fixing these iris shapes. We might have to switch them to a toggle. I don't know yet, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to just make it a natural part of the model without it looking too freaky. So thank you so much for watching me struggle with my rigging. I definitely think that she's going to be awesome once we're done. Next episode, I think we're going to be getting into some of the really fun stuff, like perfecting the mouth shapes, as well as adding in my like evil sharp teeth, red eyes, and like shadowy face, which I think that probably will have to be on a toggle, just judging on my difficulty with these heart eyes. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye! Thank you so much to my patrons and members, including Pale Star, Darkholder, Frog Scourge, Zucchini, Zio Reyes, The Main PC, Esther Kaufman, Sopapia, Roger Baker, Pretty Little Head Poppy Seed, Hey Chol, Neko Omori, Trexa Panda, Lucian, Lonely Zealot, Novel Goblin, The Mousy Mouse, Clown of Clubs, Prince Piplip III, I'm a Potato, Honey Kitten, Loro, Data, Lily McFarlane, Skitten, Gold Pikachu. The names are gone, Crodotus, Rectangle, Blanket of Misery, Moves Like Platinum, Sunday Good Enough, Ace Water, Jordan, Clown of Clubs, Jeffu, Sunshine, River the Goblin, Raz Tarosh, Casey, Graveyard Moss, Grexius, Emma Lightning, The Midwestern Menace, CB, Lucy Yamajiki, Ravenscrow, Zosalot, Jabber Dabber Doo, Light Julie, Kadaria, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Cutie Pie, Ice Cream Pal, Cola, JJ Jade, and of course, Blah 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 Blah.